Someone asked me how you would make Cinnamon Desktop have the right-click option to enable network sharing of a directory. This is something that Ubuntu has had for quite a long time, even though it's a pretty minimal interface. But it turns out that if you're running the Cinnamon desktop and you're using the default file manager, you're using something called Nemo, and Nemo doesn't have the built-in ability to handle setting up a network share or a Samba share. There is a plugin called Nemo-share that does exist and is supposed to enable this functionality. I couldn't get this to work, but the way that I tried to install it was to use first I tried to use a PPA from Web Update, but the most current build that they've got is for Ubuntu 16.04, so it wasn't letting me install that. I tried installing the deb file directly and it installed, but I couldn't get it to work. I tried some other instructions and that caused Samba to fail to start. So the only thing that I didn't try was building it from source, and I wasn't prepared to do that. So Nemo share, you're not in the running on this. So how do we get Cinnamon Desktop to handle making Samba network shares without using Nemo share and without resorting to terminal and the Samba config files and all that fun stuff? What we're going to use is a tool called system-config-samba. I've got a fresh virtual machine of Ubuntu 18.04 with the Cinnamon desktop installed. It's updated, but there's no other changes. It should just be pretty much the default setup. So I'm going to do sudo system-config-samba. Well, shoot. It's been a long day. Sudo apt install system-config-samba. And you'll see that this virtual machine does not already have Samba installed. You need that for network shares to work. So asking to install the system-config-samba said, hey, we also need the Samba server stuff. Would you like to include those? Yes, we're going to do all of that. Okay, so no errors. Let's see what the Samba daemon is doing right now. Okay, so Samba is working, so we're ready to go. For reasons that I'm not completely sure on, but I can take a guess. The system config Samba tool does not create an entry in the menu, at least not that I've been able to find. And I'm imagining this is because it has to run as root. So for now, we're just going to run it in a terminal. Oh, yes, there is one extra step. You'll see this. Traceback file, blah, 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 bunch of errors. Could not open configuration file at etc libuser.conf. Why it doesn't just make this file on its own, I don't know, but we're going to help it out and we're going to make it for it. So we're going to do sudo touch libuser.conf. Don't have to put anything in it. We just had to make the file for it. So we'll run sudo system-config-samba again. No error this time, and there we go. Okay, so you'll see that it's got, if we had any printers installed, we could manage some sharing on them, but we're not going to mess with that. What we're going to attempt to do is I have a directory on my desktop called share this. I'm going to make a document in here called this file, and I'm just going to put the text, some text in it. We want to be able to share this out to another computer and to allow someone to make changes to it. So we're going to hit the plus sign, and it's going to say create a Samba share directory. We're going to browse. We're going to go to desktop, and we're going to go to share this. We want to share this entire directory. We want it to be writable. We're going to go ahead and make it visible. And we're going to go to the Access tab, and it's going to say allow only access to specific users. And there's no user set. For now, we're going to click OK. No, we're not. We're going to cancel. So here's a little bit about how Samba works on Linux, how it used to work on Linux, compared to how Windows handles it. So on Windows, you've got your user accounts on your computer, and you can set up permissions based on those accounts. Not too big of a deal. On Linux, you used to be able to do something similar. You would set up Linux accounts on your local machine. You could give them passwords, and that would make you could assign permissions to Samba shares based on those user accounts. That doesn't work anymore. So when that worked on Linux, it was sort of a hack, because what actually happened behind the scenes, Samba has its own list of users, completely independent from any users on the local Linux machine. That's the way it was, that's the way it still is. What used to happen is you could, like on Ubuntu, I know it worked on 10.04. So Ubuntu 10.04, you set up a new user, and behind the scenes it would sort of make another account in the Samba users list for this user with the same password. And if that particular user changed their password on the Linux host, behind the scenes it would also change it on the Samba list. So it would always keep the username and the password in sync. And it was determined that that was probably a bad idea, that the way that was happening wasn't secure, so they gutted that functionality. So where does that leave us? That leaves us with, we have to manage a separate set of usernames and passwords for network shares, for Samba shares. This is different than Windows. So if you're used to working in Windows and you're wondering why the heck this is different, yeah, that's why it's different. Linux will still need a Linux user account to set up a user in the Samba user list, but it's not really going to use it for anything visible. It's all behind the scenes stuff. So we're going to go to Preferences, and we're going to go to Samba Users, and you'll see that there are no users at all. We're going to go to Add User, and this first thing, Unix username. So this is a list of all the local Linux user accounts on this machine. Most of these, all of these pretty much, are just built into the computer except for my name. So if you were going to have different user accounts and you were going to start setting up different permissions based on user accounts, you'd want to create some new Linux usernames, some new Linux accounts, so that they show up on this list. But I'm just working with me and just me, so I'm just going to leave it as is. For Windows username, this is going to be the login for the Samba share. And I'm just going to put the same thing. I'm going to put my username. Samba password and confirm Samba password. I'm just going to put a password in. This can be the same as the Linux user account. It can be different than the Linux user account because they're going to be separate accounts. So, but this is the one that you'll want to be using for the network share. So if you've got multiple users, or if you're accessing this from another computer, what you're entering in here, the Windows username and the Samba password, that's what you're using. So we'll go with that. So there's our user. And we'll go back to creating a share. So directory, desktop, share this, writable, visible, access. Allow only access to specific users, and there's my name. So I'll say yes, I can access that. So done. We've got a directory list of where the shared directory is, what it's called, and read write. Now we should be able to remote into this. So I'm going to switch to my local host. This virtual machine is running with the address 192.168.87.91. So I'm going to go to my host machine and I'm going to connect to it. So 91, share this, connect. And I've already logged in with my username and password previously, so it's remembered that. But anyway, this is the file, and I should be able to open it. I should be able to add some text to it, save it, close it. And if I go back to my virtual machine with the Samba server, there's my file, and I've added text to it. You can do quite a bit with the Samba configuration tool, but it's not going to be as robust as actually going into the Samba config and setting up a server using the config file. But for the closest analog that I think we're going to get today on the Cinnamon desktop to a Windows share, this is probably as good as we're going to get for now. However, if someone can get the Nemo share extension working, that would be pretty cool to see. So if you can do that, leave it in the comments so I can see how you did that. That would be pretty neat. But for now, this should work pretty well. So that's it. I hope that was helpful, or at least helped give a basic understanding of how Samba shares work on Linux, and then how to use the Samba config tool to manage some of those settings graphically. Thank you for watching.